is it possible for Doge to hit $1? I believe so. I believe that Doge does have the capability without much fundamental changes to hit $1. Can Doge hit $30,000 a share or $50,000 a share? That would be more on the impossible side, I'll say. That would require the GDP of like several countries at this point. There would have to be mass fundamental changes for Doge to hit $50,000 a share. Like that, mathematically, it just doesn't make sense. Welcome back, YouTube. Today, Bitcoin just hit another huge milestone. It just crossed the $1 trillion evaluation mark, and that's with the recent rally that is hovering right around the time of this recording of this video, right around $55,000 a share or a coin. And I wanted to cover this topic because I know there's been a lot of things as far as like in the news, as far as like cryptocurrency, and I also wanted to do a comparison between Bitcoin and Doge because I know that there's been a lot of like comparisons and why you should hold, and a lot of charts I've seen with like Bitcoin in like 2010 compared to Doge right now, and I really wanted to do an accurate comparison. The reason why I said I want to do an accurate comparison is because there's quite a few fundamental differences between Doge and Bitcoin, and I've seen like a lot of different charts, and sometimes they have correct information, but normally the comparison is a little off. And I also just wanted to lay out like some of the things that would have to change for Doge if you're looking for a Bitcoin type outcome. I also want to discuss the future of Bitcoin and where I think that the cryptocurrency can potentially go here in the near future. I think the best place to start this video is to address what first makes a stock price go up and down. And there's a wide variety of factors that play into this, but on the micro level, typically in the short term, it's going to be emotions that move the stock the most. And in the long term, it's technically going to be like fundamentals. Fundamentals meaning like revenue and projections, belief in the company, like output. And typically this would be more aligned with a company like Google or Apple because you have like income spreadsheets and like projections that you can look at. On crypto, for example, it's going to be mostly speculation and supply and demand. Supply and demand here plays into Bitcoin's favor because it has a limited supply. Doge, on the other hand, technically has an infinite supply, which has pros and cons to that I'll address later. But as far as the supply and demand, when things like Elon Musk comes out and says, hey, Tesla's going to buy or accept payment for the cars with Bitcoin, that immediate reaction can cause a sharp price increase because there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, and it's not going to get devalued technically over time by simply just by more production going into like the market. It can get devalued because people are no longer holding it, but as far as for the creation of more Bitcoin through like inflation, it's not going to lose value that way. Doge, on the other hand, has an infinite supply, like I said. At the time of this video, I know it's like somewhere between like 100 billion or 140 billion in circulation right now. And if you think about the recent rallies that we've seen and the amount of money that's been pushed into Dogecoin, at one point it had a valuation of $10 billion. Last time I checked, it was around like 6 billion. But at one point it had a higher valuation than the food chain Wendy's. And the amount of money that has been put into Doge and for it to still be under 10 cents is astronomical. If Bitcoin, even if people were buying fractional shares and putting that kind of money into Bitcoin, we'd probably see six-figure Bitcoin like relatively quickly. And this is the issue when you have 21 million shares compared to like 100 billion. Yes, it'll be more affordable to get in. It's more of the common man share, but the effort to rally it or to send it to the moon is going to be a lot harder. It's going to take a lot more money, and it's going to take a lot more people holding. And that's a lot of the reasons why you see people are saying hold in the like forums and on YouTube and like different chats. They're always saying hold because there's no way that you're going to be able to outpace as far as the inflation that's going to take place along with the current existing supply if you're trading in and out of it on a regular basis. It will take even more money to even stabilize the stock, let alone send it to the moon. At this point, I think it's obvious that we'll see a six-figure Bitcoin relatively soon here. And I believe that the Bitcoin, it's pretty much the leader as far as in cryptocurrency. And I believe that it probably always will be. But, there are other alternatives out there. But as far as for revenue wise and the go-to currency and what it'll end up being like used for, Bitcoin will typically have that edge. So I believe that it'll always be setting like the trends as far as for price marks and what it'll actually be traded with. But I believe sometime like in the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see six-figure Bitcoin for sure. That's without huge fundamental changes because again, the limited supply and the supply and demand as far as people holding Bitcoin, because technically if you are investing in Bitcoin, especially at this point, and you're able to put a decent amount of money in there, typically that you're in a position where you're not pressed for cash. So that's ultimately going to play another role as far as in the price of Bitcoin. Doge, on the other hand, is it possible for Doge to hit $1? I believe so. I believe that Doge does have the capability without much fundamental changes to hit $1. Can Doge hit $30,000 a share or $50,000 a share? That would be more on the impossible side, I'll say. That would require the GDP of like several countries at this point. There would have to be mass fundamental changes for Doge to hit $50,000 a share. Like that, mathematically, it just doesn't make sense. Another thing that has to be taken into effect, especially for the people that have put extremely large sums of money into Dogecoin, is the sell-offs that would happen even at around like 50 cents or $1. I know the momentum has been saying like, okay, we need to hold and like send it to the moon, but at the same time, you can't control when those sell-offs take place. So even if Doge hit $1, $10, $20 for that sake, it would just pretty much at that point, the sell-offs that would take place, even if it just rallied there for some reason, let's just say all at once, or if it was like a steady climb and it got there, the sell-offs that would take place, it would pretty much be a question of who can hit the sell button the fastest, and it would be a race to the bottom. The momentum behind Dogecoin and Bitcoin is technically for two different reasons. A lot of people have gotten rich from Bitcoin, but if you look at the fundamentals around it, typically Bitcoin, the people that invested in Bitcoin, especially like early on, when crypto was extremely new and it was just like this new, concept that was nowhere near as popular as it was today, people were legitimately investing, okay, this is going to be an alternative to the dollar. No one's like, oh yeah, crypto, this one little share that I'm getting here for less than a penny is going to be worth 50 grand one day. That wasn't the mindset behind it. Dogecoin, on the other hand, people are specifically investing, most people I believe are specifically investing to get rich. Now, whatever that dollar amount is, depending on where they got in, you can't control as far as the volatility that is going to happen once they hit certain numbers. And I believe for the most part, we've seen this in Bitcoin as well, because Bitcoin would sometimes like triple or double and then lose like 90% of its value and then rally again. And that was, a lot of volatility in Bitcoin. I can only imagine the swings that we would see in Doge, especially if it were to pick up some steam and start shooting like past the dollar for a sake. And it was like, oh, okay, this is like a real thing. And this is just without changing the fundamentals on Doge. If Elon Musk were to take over Doge and put a cap on it and stop that infinite supply, that would completely change the game. At that point, especially with the amount of money and momentum going into it now, I believe that would bring in like a lot of bigger fish, and we see a much more steady path of growth for Dogecoin, especially the people right now that continue to hold their shares. That would be the most fundamental thing that I say could happen in order to put Doge in that position to ultimately go to the moon. Because otherwise, it's just going to require pretty much what's been happening now, which is a large number of people simply holding the stock, not trading it, holding the stock, and a large steady sum of money coming in frequently to push the price up. But what we've been seeing is usually around like the 8-9 mark is massive sell-offs, or like whales jumping off, or Robinhood. I know it's a lot of like conversations going on right now about why the stock keeps crashing and who's controlling it. But typically around like the 8-9 cent mark, that's when a lot of sell-offs happen, especially now if you're getting in at like 45-50 cents. It's a big difference between oh, let's wait and see what it does, versus if I'm up, tens of thousands of dollars at something that's less than 10%, and I know I own a large sum of all the available shares, I can just sell and crash the stock and then buy back in again. And I think that's what's been going on. In addition to that, a lot of people are comparing it to Bitcoin because they don't want to miss out on the next Bitcoin. You're seeing like a lot of posts about people not investing in Bitcoin, or they're looking back and where they had opportunities, or they was presented to them, and they're like, hey, I'm not missing the train again on cryptocurrency, so I'm just gonna put some money in here and see what happens. And I'm all for that. I've done both as far as in Dogecoin. I've traded it, and I currently hold stocks. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You never know. You can't predict the market. You can't predict the future. Something that's so, it's less than a dime right now. There's a video recently released of Elon Musk signing autographs, and he's saying that, definitely put some money in Doge, but, don't bet the farm on it. And I agree with that completely. You don't know what the future holds. You don't know what the fundamentals of Doge is going to be in 5 to 10 years. But typically, as with most of the currencies, cryptocurrencies, assets, stocks, over time, typically they are worth more. So in the event that Doge goes from 5 cents to $1, or to $10, $100, $1,000, whatever the case may be, getting in at 5 cents would do you some good. Technically speaking, you can invest in Bitcoin no matter what the price is because of fractional shares. But in order to get that same return that you would get with something as cheap as Dogecoin, it would have to do an incredible numbers to get like those same percentages, which it has been doing lately. But I believe that, typically Bitcoin, it has its hot periods and then it cools down. It's not as volatile as Doge, but after the rallies and the news or whatnot, typically it cools down. And also with Bitcoin, what we can see over history is normally it crashes after the rallies. And by crashes, I mean like 80%. I don't know if that's going to happen this time. It has a lot of interest. It's been getting like a lot of press, and with Tesla, with the Tesla announcement, I'm not sure if it'll crash by 80%, but it is something to keep in mind. Normally after a Bitcoin rally, it crashes around like 80% before it rallies again to an all-time high. With that being said, are you a Bitcoin warrior, a Doge warrior, or both? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's talk about it. I do some live streams a couple times a week, just monitoring like the price of Doge. I think I'll do one of both, like Doge and like Bitcoin, and have like some conversations while I'm on the live stream. I think that'll be beneficial for a lot of people. I also just recently announced my new goal for the channel, which is to have it at 5,000 subscribers by July 2021. That is the goal for the channel. So if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. You can ultimately help me reach that 5,000 goal. Give the video a like. It helps the video get shared and reach to more people, so that they can also weigh in on like these topics and decide if they want to become a part of the family as well. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, and until next time.